If you have an organization and you're trying to empower your team to make decisions and all they do is keep making wrong decisions, the first place you need to look is in the mirror. Welcome back to another episode of the Tradepreneur Show. Your host, Patrick Summers, and I want to start off by making an apology. I did not get an episode posted last week. Hopefully you noticed that. I really want to make sure I'm consistent in publishing episodes. Last week I was traveling. I was in Orlando at a podcast and social media convention, attempting to hone my craft and make some connections and learn what I could to be a better podcaster. So again, my apologies. I'm going to get right back on track here, and we are episode 49. And, I want to recap real quick. Episode 48, I had Greg Ayrton, a radio guru, lifelong sales and marketing guy, in the episode. So I didn't do a book section, and as much as I'm committed to get a book section in, sometimes the guests are going to prevent that because I'm going to want to give ample time to the guests without making the show run too long. But before that, episode 47 is when we kicked off our first book section or segment. And the book, for a recap, was Good Profit. And Charles Koch is the author. It's one of several books he's written. And today I'm covering part 2. The book is divided into 3 sections, and this is going to be a quick little segment. And then I'm going to roll right into the episode. So in part 2 of Good Profit, it's how creating value for others built one of the world's most successful companies. Koch Industries, if you recall, in 1967, I believe it was, when Charles Koch went to work for his father, the company was doing like 21, 22 million. And today it's 125 million a year. Actually, I want to say it's 125 billion a year. Privately held company, not 125 million. It went from literally 20 millions a year. Again, you got to adjust that for 1967. But today, not a very long period of time, 125 billion a year, and it's privately held. That's, to me, pretty impressive. And one of the things Charles Koch contributes to the success of Koch Industries is their market-based management, or MBM for short. And part 1 of the episode included a lot of the earlier foundation of Koch Industries, the history, his father, and how Koch Industries started and what they started in, and a lot of the biography, for lack of a better term. So today we're going to go into applying the free market principles inside a company. That's what this episode is going to get into, and part 2 gets into. It gets into more of the meat and potatoes of the episode. And, Koch calls it good profit, and good profit is earned by creating real value for customers, employees, and society. And it's not through shortcuts. It's not through gimmicks, and it's not through government favors or subsidies. That's his definition of good profit. I have to say I agree. And so in part 2, titled MBM in Action, Koch shifts from the theory to practice. And they give a lot of examples throughout how they used MBM in some of their acquisitions and integrations of other industries into their organization. They basically are going to walk you through how they use it every day with real life examples. That's part 2, right? It's where the rubber meets the road. And the first element of this MBM is one of the most critical, I believe, and that is vision. Setting a clear value creating vision and direction for your company to go. Not chasing short-term wins, but focusing on long-term value creation. Koch shares stories of how he spotted opportunities in refining chemicals and the commodities space by anticipating customer needs. Second element of MBM is virtue and talents, hiring people with strong values like integrity and humility, and then developing their skills and empowering them to contribute their best. It's about building a culture where people thrive. A lot of what I believe here at General Air Conditioning and Plumbing. And the third element is knowledge processes, creating systems to gather, share, and apply knowledge across the organization, benchmarking and learning faster than the competition, and building a culture where ideas move freely. And I think this is really critical because you have to move faster than the competition. And you have to be able to pass on knowledge in a way that it doesn't change. And that, if you ever played the game of telephone where you tell somebody one thing and then 10 people down the path, it's a totally different message. And that's what happens if you don't have a way to pass on knowledge in an organization properly and that's properly documented. The fourth is decision rights. And we're going to turn this episode into a deeper discussion on decision rights because, well, you got to have the vision, you got to have the direction and everything else that goes with it. Decision rights is powerful, and I think it's one of the things that keeps entrepreneurs stuck. Decision rights is assigning decision-making authority to the people with the most relevant knowledge, the people closest to the problem, not simply the people with the biggest titles. And we're going to go into that a bit more when we get through this book segment. But basically, it decentralizes power and speeds up execution and innovation. And fifth, incentives, aligning rewards with the creation of long-term value. Look, I believe the more successful general air conditioning and plumbing is, the more there is to share with those people that are truly dedicated to helping you get to where you want to be. And that doesn't mean everybody in the organization. It means the people that are truly committed and show up every day, come to work with the right attitude, are innovative, make the right calls. And when they make the wrong calls, they own it. And they help the industry or the organization move forward. Koch explains how traditional bonus structures can backfire when they reward the wrong behavior. And I've seen this all too often, and I've been guilty of it. He shares how Koch Industries design incentives that reinforce decisions that create value for everyone. Everyone. Critical word there. Throughout part 2, he uses case studies, including acquisitions like Georgia Pacific. Yep, that's Koch Industries. Investa and more to show how MBM helped integrate and improve them. Key there, integrate it into your current organization and culture. He talks about navigating risks and downturns, volatility, and regulation. There's a fun one, regulation. I think we as a country are overregulated. He does it by sticking to principled entrepreneurship and using MBM. The big takeaway from part 2 is this. MBM isn't just rules. It's a mindset. It's a belief system that turns challenges into opportunity and forces creative destruction. There's that word again. Creative destruction is where old ways get replaced by better ones. And Koch's point is that businesses can adopt these principles to generate good profit and make a positive impact, not just in people's lives, but in the community. So today's focus, what we're going to talk about today in this episode, is the one element, which is decision rights. It's very close to me because I, as an entrepreneur, want to hold everything tight. I don't want to let go. I want to have final say in everything. And while I'm evolving, or you could say I'm a recovering control freak, and that's something I freely admit. And I know it's the number one obstacle to my growth. And I think for entrepreneurs, it can be one of the number one obstacles. And let me just say, not just to my growth, but the company's growth. And why? Why is that? Because we have built something and we're building something. We own it and we want to own it. And we know that it's so fragile. It's like having a child and taking your child to school and giving them to daycare. And it takes a while to develop that trust for somebody else to take care of your baby, so to speak. But if you really want to grow, if you really want to be successful, you have to learn to give up controls. It requires you to stop having every single decision flow through you. And if you're listening right now thinking, yeah, but nobody can do it like me, believe me, I get it. That thinking is exactly what creates the ceiling. The good news is, for me, I think it's a glass ceiling. At least if you work at it, you can bust through that ceiling. The military has an old saying. It's more British. Big hands on little maps. That's the way to kill the chaps. See, there's the British part. What's the meaning? From far away, the plan looks clean. From the conference room, everything sounds simple. But once you're on the ground, the terrain is different. Real obstacles, real friction, and real variables. And if a leader tries to control everything by being big hands on little maps, they make assumptions that people on the ground have to pay for, the people in the field, the people closest to the problem. That's why decision rights matter. That's why I believe it's such a critical element and probably one of the most difficult for the individual, the leader in the organization, the CEO, the entrepreneur to deal with. Because the best decisions usually need to be made by the people who can actually see the terrain. And I think we know that at heart, but it's a trust game and it takes time. A great book that I highly recommend you read, and I think I've bought over 100 copies of it to give out to the team and a bunch of other people, is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. In the book, they talk about what they call decentralized command, and it's one of the laws of combat. Decentralized command empowers the individuals at all levels to make decisions. And when you do that, you get agility and you can be more responsive. You can be faster, make better decisions, quicker decisions, because decision-making gets pushed to the people closest to the action, closest to the problem, and closest to the opportunity. And that's how he operated his platoon within SEAL Team 3. Here's the trap, why it fails. Decision rights and decentralized command, when they don't work, it's for specific reasons. You can't just announce them. You can't just institute it and expect it to magically function. If you do that, it will fail. And then you'll do what entrepreneurs always do, and what I have been guilty of doing. You'll say, see, I told you so. It doesn't work. You know, there's that saying, if it's going to be, it's up to me. That's partially true. If it's going to work, if we're going to succeed, then it's up to thee. You'll tighten your grip once it fails, once you launch it poorly. And 6 months later, you're frustrated and you're asking, why can't we grow? Why are we stuck? What's the problem? Why can't anybody get anything done? Why can't people think like me? So the real question becomes, how do we decentralize decisions without losing control? And the answer is this. You don't decentralize with chaos. You decentralize with clarity. And that's where the next piece comes in. If you're going to decentralize, if you're going to push the decision-making to the people closest to the problem and the opportunity, you have to have a vision, a clear vision. Now we're back to element number 1 of MBM. You have to have a clear vision, or as the military calls it, commander's intent. In the military, there's a concept, and we talked about it a few episodes back, maybe a little bit more than a few, and it's called commander's intent. And commander's intent is a clear, concise statement, and it outlines what we are trying to achieve and why we're doing it. It does 3 things. First, it guides decision-making. It empowers people down the chain to make good decisions even when circumstances change unexpectedly. Second, it creates unity of effort. Everyone understands the mission, their role, and what success looks like. Third, it allows flexibility in execution. Oh, flexibility. That's a painful word for entrepreneurs, isn't it? What does that mean, flexibility in execution? The plan can change on the ground, but the mission stays aligned. All right? The plan can change on the ground, but the mission stays aligned. That means obstacles come, unforeseen things come, but the mission doesn't change. Why are we doing this? What are the key tasks? What must be done no matter what? Look, this is not just commander's intent. This is a vision. It must clearly be stated and understood. What is the desired end state? What does done look like? What does success look like? What does mission accomplished look like at the end? And this concept is exactly how you make decision rights work in your business. Because you just can't tell people, make decisions. That's too vague. You have to give them the purpose, the key tasks, and the desired end state. And when you do that, they always know what to navigate towards. They know what success looks like, and they know the parameters to operate in. That's how people make decisions that match the mission. That's how you decentralize without the company drifting. So now listen, there's something else that was taught to me by a mentor of mine, and it's called the decision tree. And the decision tree, and this is not the decision tree like you see, like flowcharts and maps, but it explained how to make decisions and what decisions are. So if you think of a tree, right? Any type of tree you'd like. Most trees, at least that I've come across, have leaves, they have branches, they have a trunk, and they have roots. And if you look at it this way, there are leaf decisions, branch decisions, and trunk decisions. Now, here's the thing about leaf decisions. If you make a leaf decision, Make the decision. You don't have to report it. You don't have to tell anybody. It's just a decision to make. Now, the tree can lose a lot of leaves, and it's not going to harm the tree. Now, if your team starts making leaf decisions and you start riding on them and all over them and overriding them and second guessing them, guess what? Your tree's going to lose all its leaves, and it's not going to be by your team making decisions. It's going to be out of fear. But leaf decisions are inconsequential. Almost anybody in the organization within their area of operation should be able to make leaf decisions and does not have to report a leaf decision. A branch decision, all right? A branch decision is this. Make the decision and act on it. Then report it daily, weekly, monthly, or as appropriate. So, leaf decisions, make the decision, act on it, don't report it. Branch decisions, make the decision, act on it, and report it as appropriate. Trunk decisions, make your decision, report your decision before you take action, right? You can lose the leaves, you can damage a few branches. The tree will be fine. When you get into the trunk, you can cause damage to that tree. Think of a tree you see struck by lightning where it splits down the trunk. Pretty ugly looking, goofy looking. Actually, can be kind of cool looking too, but it's done significant damage to that tree. So trunk decisions, make your decision, report your decision before you take action. Why? Because that decision may have impact you're unaware of or may interfere with something you're unaware of because it's a bigger decision that affects more of the organization. So make your decision, report your decision before you take action. That way, if you need to be redirected, guided, or even just have a discussion to make sure you have a thorough understanding of ramifications, good and bad, of your decision-making, that opportunity can be had. That's where good leaders guide and mentor their subordinates. That's where coaching and training takes place for those that you're developing. Now, root decisions. Now, root decisions in an organization, typically a lot of them are going to be made by the owners, the CEO, the executive team, because they fundamentally can kill the tree or change the direction of the tree, so to speak. But in this context, root decisions, we make the decision jointly with input from many people. And I think a good CEO, a good executive team, a good general manager, whatever level you're at, those type of decisions are going to be made collectively. Now, I will tell you as a CEO, many times I know the direction we're going to go and the decision I'm going to make, but I'm going to seek counsel and input from the team around me. Why? Because they may see things I do not see, and they may understand things from perspectives I don't have because they're closer to the problems. They're closer to the issues. But my job is to make sure that it doesn't hurt the company. The fiduciary responsibility of a CEO ensures that the company doesn't do anything that could be damaging to it financially, its reputation, or anything like that. So those should be collective decisions, ideally. And it's not a perfect analogy, but I think it really helps. And your organization should be able to push most decisions to become leaf decisions. That would be ideal, right? That they're leaf decisions and your team is making those decisions. And when you can do that, you can operate at a faster speed. You can outmaneuver the competition, and you can build an organization that understands the mission and the commander's intent and can operate within those confines. And reality is they're not confines. It's freedom. And it becomes freedom for you as the business owner. The one thing I realized early in my career was the organization is only going to grow so far and so fast if everything has to flow through me. And the more you can empower your team to make the decisions that need to be made, the better, more profitable, and stronger and faster growth and all of those things your organization can experience. But again, you have to teach, coach, and mentor your team to make the right decisions and understand how decision making is made and when to seek counsel, your counsel or their superior's counsel. You know, if it's a technician, when to go to the service manager. If it's a service manager, when to go to the ops manager, the general manager. General manager, when to go to the CEO, and so on and so forth. If you have an organization and you're trying to empower your team to make decisions and all they do is keep making wrong decisions, the first place you need to look is in the mirror. And maybe you need a relaunch of your process. Maybe you need to stop it altogether and regroup if it's that bad and that far off kilter. But I think that at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to empower the organization you lead to be empowered, to make the decisions that align with your company's vision and or the commander's intent. And that's why it's so important that you have a very clear vision, not one that's fancy to look at on the walls, not one that is great in a news story, not one that is great for you to look at and feel pompous, but one that truly guides the direction and the decision-making of the organization. And when you have that, you have something incredibly powerful. So again, if you don't have a vision, get to work on that. Your responsibility is to communicate that vision daily to everyone so they understand it. And when someone makes the wrong decision, one of the 7 habits of highly effective people is seek first to understand, then be understood. Begin with the end in mind. Think win-win. Those 3 right there I like to use when trying to understand a decision made, if it was a poor decision or the wrong decision. Because a wrong decision when we're armchair quarterbacking could have been the right decision when you're in the moment. And I will always tell the team, if you make a decision with the information you have at hand in the moment, and you didn't have other resources available to you, but you made the decision with the best interests of the team, the customer, and the company with the information you had at hand at the time, and that decision turned out to be wrong, I will support you. Otherwise, you're just Monday morning quarterbacking, which is fun to do when it's football. But the question then becomes, what do you do when the decision is wrong? Use it to coach and mentor. Ask questions. Don't start telling somebody what you would have done. Start asking them questions. What led you to make that decision? Were there any other options you considered? Did you try and contact this person? Did you look up the history? Whatever, just ask questions. Ask questions. Try and get to their mindset, where they were. And it does go back to the 5 whys, another great book. You got to ask why at least 5 times before you start to unsurface the real meat and potatoes of something. So ask questions and listen, and then guide and mentor. You may find out that you would have made the same decision in the moment after speaking to the individual in this scenario who's made up. But seek first to understand, then be understood. Begin with the end in mind, and always think win-win. And a win in this scenario is to mentor one of your team members to make better decisions. And with that said, I want to close out with a quote. And the quote matches today's topic. It's by Vern Harnish. I hope I said that name right. And the quote he wrote is, letting go and trusting others to do things well is one of the more challenging aspects of being a leader and of growing an organization. So let me read that again. Letting go and trusting others to do things well is one of the more challenging aspects of being a leader and of growing an organization. He's the author of Scaling Up. And if you're going to scale, you have to let go. You have to push decision-making to those below you, those in the field, those closest to the problem. You have to encourage them and support them to do so. This quote is true for every entrepreneur who wants to grow. This belief, this action of everything we talked about is true because growth requires trust and trust requires systems. You don't let go by hoping people do it right. You let go by building clear expectations, clear decision rights, clear training, clear scoreboards, clear accountability. You've got to have the vision. You got to have the commander's intent. So if you're not handing off chaos, you're handing off clarity. And that's what you want. Move from handing off chaos to handing off clarity. And that's how leaders scale. And it's a team effort, but it starts with you. So listen, if you're the owner or the leader, decision rights is not an optional. If you want to scale, it's not optional. But you also can't fake it. You'll be found out quickly. Listen, if you enjoyed today's episode, share it with another owner or leader, technician in the field, CSR, anyone, whether they're stuck or they think they're rocking it. I appreciate you sharing this. I appreciate you being here. Please like and share the podcast. That's a big help to me. Thank you for your support. And until next time, let's win the day, one day at a time, and stay great.